Right guys, welcome back to the channel, and it is my favourite time of the year. It's December, it's a new edition, which means it's Blood Angel Codex, because we always get it at the beginning of December. Thank you to Games Workshop, of course, for sending this out for us to preview. But of course, I want to say thank you to my very special guest who is reviewing the book with me. If you're in the Blood Angel Facebook group, you will know this man, Mr. Chris Chance. Chris, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So Chris has had a little bit of a look through this. I've had a little bit of a look through it. My initial opinion, Chris, is it's a very balanced book.
I definitely agree with that. There's nothing that just automatically sticks out as broken, but there are some good combos and things that can be found here.
Yeah, it's very much in the line with the Death Watch and the Space Wolf supplement. Nothing is too overpowered. For me, it still feels a little bit too much like playing just Space Marines that are red with a couple of things. But there is some cool stuff in here. A lot of the stratagems changed. The Relics and Warlord Traits have changed from even the PDF supplement. So let's dive in head first and have a look through the book. Unpopular opinion as well. A lot of people will want to know. Assault intercessors do come in yellow helmets, Chris. So there they are.
Yeah, I know that's been a very big discussion at times on the Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely. But they are in yellow. So there you go. There you have it. So, a lot of people are asking about Death Visions of Sanguinius, and is it still a stratagem? No, it's not. It's a detachment ability now. And much like the Master Chaplain and Master Apothecary and things, you can upgrade a captain and a lieutenant for a certain amount of points to essentially give them the Black Rage ability. 20 points for a captain and 10 for a lieutenant. But there is a lot of restrictions in doing this. You can upgrade a single captain and up to 2 lieutenants, but they don't break the rule for a single captain in a detachment. You can actually take 1 Death Company captain and 1 normal captain. However, they lose the Rights of Battle aura, and they gain it in a sense of called Rights of Rage, which allows Death Company core units within 6 to reroll hit rolls of a 1. And then they get access to, what was the rule called? The Death Visions, which we'll come onto a little bit later. But you can choose one of 3 things that you can actually do as a result of that once per game. What's your thoughts on that, Chris? Do you think that they are good, or...?
I think it turns it well more into the fluffy side of things, more to the lore side. Your Death Company characters are only going to buff Death Company units, but normal characters will still buff those Death Company units because they are core.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how you want to do it. I think the main reason to take it at this point is because you do get access to those Death Vision options and, the extra attack and the extra 6+ feel no pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, it means that they can't retreat because of the change to the Black Rage rule, and they can't perform actions. But that's probably not what you're going to be doing with them anyway, is it?
No, it's rare, in my experience so far, it's rare that your characters are performing many actions anyway, because most of those actions are for infantry, non-character units anyway.
Yeah. So the Death Visions, once per battle, when this model is selected to fight, it can use one of the Death Visions listed below. The same Death Vision cannot be used more than once per battle. There is ways, there's a stratagem that actually allows you to use 2 of these, or to use another one if you've already used one. So you've got the choice of 3 options. The first one, On the Bridge of Vengeful Spite. So a model can use this Death Vision if an enemy infantry character or monster character models are visible to it. And if a model uses this Death Vision until the fight is resolved, add 1 to his attack characteristic for every 5 enemy models that are within 6 of it, and each time the model makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. It's not capped at how many attacks you can get.
It's very interesting in the right situation. Most of the time, you're probably going to end up with just 1 extra attack, maybe 2.
Yeah, but you only have to have an infantry or monster character visible. They don't have to be in combat with that. Imagine that you're in combat with
that is true. I didn't notice that. You're right.
Yeah. So imagine you charge into 30 Orc boys. And then if you've got the Teeth of Terror, one interesting thing about the upgrade as well, the model cannot be your Warlord if you give them this upgrade. So you wouldn't be
probably don't want him as your Warlord anyway, because he's going to go off and die heroically, hopefully.
Absolutely. But, I mean, Teeth of Terror is still a pretty good relic, and obviously you can get extra attacks. He's going to have Black Rage. You'll have Silent Echoes if you're on turn 3. You've got Shock Assault. You're getting at least +3 attacks for charging, plus an extra 1 for every 5 models within range.
Oh, it can be insane. He's definitely Teeth of Terror especially is going to be an infantry blender.
Absolutely. So there's that one. There's the Grace of the Angel. A model can only use this Death Vision if an enemy infantry character or monster character are within engagement range of it. If a model uses this Death Vision until the end of that turn, he has a 3-up invulnerable save. I've noticed that in all of the new codexes that are coming out, and we're probably going to see this going forward, GW are moving away from anything better than a 4+ invulnerable save. So actually having access to a 3+ might be okay in the right situation. It's okay.
If you just really need him to survive. That's a good one to use for that situation.
Absolutely. And then we've got to slay the War Master. You can only use this one if an infantry character or monster character are in engagement range. If a model uses this Death Vision, then instead of making any attacks for that fight, both players roll off. If you win, select one of those enemy models. That model suffers D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. That I want to like the idea of this, but you're relying on a roll-off.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool if you win the roll-off, but it's very swingy.
Yeah. I think it also depends on who your target is as well. I mean, a Blood Angel captain is going to be able to put out a lot of attacks anyway, potentially getting through people's armor and possibly invuns. But if you're going up, say, against like Ahriman, where he's probably got -1 to hit, +1 to his invulnerable save, I'd possibly be tempted to use that on Ahriman. Or
like
similar characters.
Ahriman or Gilliman, last-ditch effort to take some wounds off Gilliman.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So they're okay, and of course your lieutenants and captains can get access to those. It's 20 points for a captain and 10 points for a lieutenant. And like we said, they don't break the structure of command. You can take them in addition to normal captains and lieutenants. So possibly handy, but they can't be your warlord, which means you can't give them a warlord trait. Interestingly enough, though, Chris, do you think that means that you can use the stratagem to give them a warlord trait?
I would think so, because that stratagem says pick a model that's not your warlord.
I don't know where it is, but it is here somewhere. Oh, there you go. Honoured by the Arch-Angelicum. Use this stratagem after nominating a model drawn from your Blood Angel or Successor chapter to be your warlord. Oh, it's taken
that one is to give a warlord a second warlord trait.
Oh, there we go. Angel Exemplar. Use this stratagem after nominating a Blood Angel character model that is not a named character to be your warlord. Oh no, you can generate an extra warlord trait.
Yeah, so you would be, for this instance, you'd be using Hero of the Chapter from the basic Space Marine Codex.
Fair enough. But being able to take a second warlord trait on a normal captain is pretty good as well. Or
Yeah, I've already thought of a couple combos there that could be nasty.
yeah. Whilst we're on this page, we'll go over the rest of the stratagems actually. Now, Forlorn Fury, Upon the Wings of Fire, and Descent of Angels are all still here, but most of them have changed quite significantly. I don't know if I like some of the changes. The first one, of course, is Descent of Angels. That previously gave us a 3d6 charge if you set them up on the board. It doesn't anymore. It is 1 CP, but each time a charge roll is made for that unit, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the charge roll. I don't know if I like that.
It's, we've got other access to re-rolling, so it's not horrible. Icon of the Angel, as they previewed, shows that you can re-roll. Yes, it was nerfed to the full re-roll and not any dice. But we can get pluses from chaplains. There's the Martial Exemplar trait on the Chapter Champion for re-roll charges. So it's not completely terrible.
No.
But there are enough things out there right now that are negating pluses to charges. So that at least lets you ignore that.
It does. And of course, it does say that you can ignore any. So you could choose, because obviously Blood Angels get that natural +1, so you could choose to keep hold of that. The other side to this stratagem, though, is each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Now, this is until the end of your turn. So, if you do drop your Sanguinary Guard down, you can get +1 to your hit roll for your Angelus Bolters or your Plasma Pistols. But then if you make the charge...
Or a big blob of Inceptors.
See, this is why Chris is here, because he thinks of stuff like this. But
5 or 6 Inceptors with Plasma hitting on 2s.
Yep. And oh look, there's a captain nearby to re-roll those ones as well. That's yeah. It has a very different use to what it had previously, I think. What's interesting is obviously you can use that on jump packs. If you happen to be fluffy and running Terminators, you can still use the one from the generic Space Marine book. I can't remember the name of it, but you get +1 to hit on your Terminators as well. So you could lay down a lot of fire depending on what units that you've got.
Yeah, I think what people need to remember too is we're so used as Blood Angels players seeing attack and we're thinking melee hits, but in GW terms, attack means anything shooting or melee.
Yep, absolutely. So for 1 CP, I think it is decent. It's a different stratagem to what it was previously, despite it being the same name. Next up, we've got Vengeance of Sanguinius. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Blood Angel unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack against a Black Legion unit, you can re-roll the attack's hit roll and wound. It is cool, but how many times do you come up against Black Legion?
Not very often. I mean, it can be devastating if you are fighting them, but it's one of those fluffy stratagems.
Yeah. Refusal to Die, which we've already seen. This originally debuted in Blood of Baal, and I think this one's still in the PDF.
It is.
So it's 1 CP or 2 CP, depending on how many models are in the unit, and it increases the Death Company Shrug Wounds to a 5+, but it's only until the end of that phase. You can only use this stratagem once per turn as well, so obviously you've got to choose. Do you use it in the shooting phase, or do you use it in the combat phase? So no change to that one. The next one that we've got is a Flesh Tearer specific one. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. Select a Flesh Tearer infantry unit from your army until the end of the phase. Each time a model in that unit makes a pile-in or consolidate move, it can move an additional 3 inches. Cool. Extra movement's already pretty good.
Yeah, let's compare that real quick though. There's nothing that says it does not stack with the ability from a chaplain, FYI.
So you mean the 9-inch consolidation?
At this current point, with the way it's worded, that looks like it could be potential.
Wow, fair enough. The next one we've got is Angel Sacrifice. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. Select a Blood Angel character unit, excluding vehicles. So, no Librarian Dreadnoughts. Until the end of that phase, each time an enemy unit is selected to fight, if a model in that unit is within engagement range of that character unit when your opponent is selecting targets for its attacks, those attacks can only target the character unit instead. So I think that one might be useful if you've used the Death Vision on that captain to give him that 3-up invulnerable and say, no, hit me instead.
There's use there, or if you're trying to, let's say you've got an OBSEC unit setting on an objective that you really need to hold.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to attack the OBSEC unit, you can say, nope, you got to hit this character instead.
Yeah. And do you know what? I think it is good because it literally forces your opponent to have to attack that character. I think it's very good to, especially in 9th edition where it's all about sitting on objectives. I think that could come in clutch at some very important moments, I think.
Definitely.
Spiritual Might. Use this stratagem in your Psychic phase. Select a Blood Angel Psychic unit from your army, and you can attempt to cast an additional power. Fantastic. Fantastic. We will get the Psychic powers very shortly because I know a lot of people are wondering what happened to Wings, Quickening, and Unleash Rage. We'll get to that very soon, though. The next one is Visions of Sanguinius. Use this stratagem when a Death Company character model from your army is selected to fight. That model can do one of the following. If the model has already used a Death Vision, it can use another one. Or if it hasn't used one yet, it can use 2. But you can't select one that's already being used by another character in the battle. So again, that goes back to that one that we were saying there about like forcing a unit of 30 Orc boys to have to fight that captain, but with extra attacks or defending yourself with that 3-up invulnerable. I think being able to use 2 of them is quite clutch. And again, if you do go for the mortal wound one against a beefed up character like Gilliman or even Typhus or somebody, not Typhus, Mortarion, I think they are very situational, Chris, but I think some of them could come in to play at very, very meaningful moments.
Yeah, I think the first one, what's the name of that one? I got to get back to it. Sorry. On the Bridge of the Vengeful Spirit, I think probably has more use than the other 2.
Yeah.
But definitely, they all have some use at some point in time.
Yeah. And especially if you can combine 2 of them, it's not a bad shout for a single CP.
Yeah.
Angel Exemplar.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Of course.
Before anybody goes off about my misquote, the Canticle of Hate will not stack with Aggressive Onslaught. I double checked. Nothing can stack with that. My fault.
Which one's Aggressive Onslaught? Sorry.
The Flesh Terror one about the additional 3-inch pile-in.
Oh, right.
So that will not stack with the Canticle of Hate. Sorry.
Right. Fair enough. Angel Exemplar. Sorry. You can generate an additional Warlord trait if it's not a named character. It's cool, but I don't think all of the Warlord traits are amazing. I think there's 2 that are decent, and my opinion, I don't think some of the others are that great, but we'll get Chris's side when we get there. Angel Ascendant. Select a Blood Angel model from your army that has the word Sergeant. They can take special issue war gear, relics such as the Mastercrafted weapons, digital weapons, Quake bolts. It's pretty generic to a lot of Space Marine chapters, so it's cool. Lucifer pattern engines, and I'm still disappointed at this, Chris.
Yeah, it's probably not something I'm going to use very often, if ever.
Like, Lucifer pattern engines back in 7th were amazing. Because it turned your Baal Predator into fast. You could shoot at full ballistic skill with 2 weapons and still move 12 inches, which was... It was amazing. But, yeah, you can advance 6 inches instead of rolling the dice. But why would you advance your vehicles? Other than an impulsor, which it doesn't say you can't do.
Well, you can use it on an impulsor now because an impulsor no longer flies. So you can at least do it there.
Yep. So you can't use it on a Dreadnought, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. It's possibly a good shout on an impulsor, depending on what you've got in your impulsor and how far you need it to go.
Usually, for me personally, if I'm running impulsors now, it's full of blade guard, and they're probably going to take the center of the board. As long as I've got 1 turn of movement, they're there.
Yeah. Yeah. Honoured by the Archangelicum. If you're a successor chapter, you can take an actual Blood Angel relic. Red Rampage. Again, it's not a bad stratagem. It's just not the same as what Red Rampage used to be called. This one was previewed on the community site earlier in the week. You can only use this stratagem once, but in your command phase, until your next command phase. Each time a Blood Angel model from your army makes an attack with a pistol or melee weapon, and a modified wound roll of a 6 increase the AP by 1.
It's not great, but in the right situation, just based on if nothing else, the sheer number of attacks we can throw with chainswords.
Yeah.
You're gonna start getting, if we're in the assault doctrine with chainswords, you're gonna start getting AP -3. So if you just really need to clear some things out, it could help.
Yeah. It's okay for 1 CP. It affects your whole army.
Yeah, that's the clutch thing. You're not picking a single unit. It's the whole army.
Yeah. Absolutely. Unbridled Ardor. Use a stratagem at the end of the heroic intervention step of your opponent's charge phase. Select a Sanguinary Guard unit from your army that is within 6 inches, and they can perform a heroic intervention. It is fluffy. I totally get that Sanguinary Guard would do that, like to protect characters or protect key units. It's a shame they took it away and made it Sanguinary Guard only.
Yeah, it was nice to be able to do it with anything, but me personally, almost every time I used it, it was usually Sanguinary Guard or Death Company because they were what was up in the mix of things anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. With the things that I've seen in here, the stratagems and other traits are kind of just reinforcing using Death Company and Sanguinary Guard.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I was a little bit disappointed that they took away, though, was Explosive Judgment. Which was...
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
It was nice while it lasted. I mean, we haven't really been able to game anybody else in the UK other than for about 2 or 3 months in the middle of the year since March. So, even since Blood of Baal came out, we haven't had that much opportunity to be able to get games in. I know, obviously, America's a little bit more relaxed than what the UK is at the moment. So hopefully you got some use out of it.
I did, and the last month or so when they put those Angels bolt guns up to 18 inches, it was really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Forlorn Fury is still here. It still does the same thing, but with a couple of restrictions. You can only move up to 12 inches. So that Death Company biker captain, he can only go 12, not 14. Also, you have to end your movement more than 9 inches away from enemy models, which is a little bit of a change. If it contains 6 or more models, it's 2 CP rather than 1. So it's nice that we've still got it, though.
Yeah, the loss of that honestly kind of made me quit using Death Company for a little bit. And I played ITC quite a bit prior to the changes into the new missions, and it was definitely a way more usable strat at that point because of the change into how first turn happened.
Yeah.
Now with it going back to a straight roll off for first turn, 4-1 Fury is definitely still usable, but I think you have to use it a little bit different based on that change from like where ITC was to where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one we've got is Upon the Wings of Fire, and it was probably the second or third most used stratagem in the Old Blood Angel book. Red Rampage and Descent of Angels being probably, well, there was a lot of stratagems that were used a lot, but Upon the Wings of Fire, I read this and my heart sunk, Chris.
Yeah, that just in general, GW seems to be pulling back those first turn charges at least a little bit. And this definitely pulled that back for us.
Yeah. So you can use this stratagem in your movement phase, select a Blood Angel Core jump pack unit from your army, and remove it from the battlefield. In the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set up that unit anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from enemy models. Yeah, you missed the entire turn.
It is down to 1 CP now, though, as opposed to the 2 CP it had gone up to.
Yeah, yeah.
I think in the right army setup, list setup, this combined with guerrilla tactics from the main codex with Phobos units could be some interesting play from turn to turn.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still good. It's just a lot of these stratagems are vastly different to what Blood Angel players I feel are used to. And much like when we transferred over from 7th to 8th edition, it's about relearning what works and how your army plays.
It is, but I think in general that's good for the game.
For the good of the game, I think this is a very good codex. It is very balanced. It still gives you some flavour. I do feel that because we were so spoiled in 8th edition with what we could do, having the reins pulled in a little bit, I don't know, it doesn't feel nice at first, but I think as more codexes start to come out in this fashion, and the game generally seems to be getting more balanced as they come out.
It does. I mean, there are fewer broken things in the Space Marine Codex than what we saw before. There were things reined back in the Necron Codex. There's a couple funny things in there, but they're for the most part they're reined in some of those broken things that were before. So I think it's hopefully they continue going that route through all the codexes and we don't see codex creep.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last stratagem we've got is Chalice Overflowing. Use it in your command phase and select one Sanguinary Priest model from your army. That model can choose to use its Blood Chalice ability one additional time. Is the Blood Chalice the one that gets a model back up? I can't remember.
No, Blood Chalice now is the one that allows you to put a unit in the Assault Doctrine.
Oh. But
so now you can put 2 units in the Assault Doctrine in turn 1 or 2.
But does Silent Echoes still kick in on them or not? Because I know there was a lot of argument over that.
That is debatable. Looking at it, they did change the wording to Savage Echoes a little. And with that wording, I think it will actually allow the extra attack to kick in now. The Sanguinary Priest wording did not change, but Savage Echoes did a little bit.
I'm trying to find out where it is. I don't know where it is.
It's back on the Detachment Abilities page.
Oh, there, Savage Echoes. Why am I calling it Silent Echoes? Whilst the Assault Doctrine is active each time this unit fights. Yeah. In your command phase, select one friendly Blood Angel core or Blood Angel character within 6. Until the start of your next command phase, if the tactical or Devastator Doctrine is active for your army, then each time a model in that unit makes an attack, the Assault Doctrine is considered to be active for it instead. And it says if the Assault Doctrine is active. So based on what it says at the minute, I would say that it probably does give the extra attack.
I think that's the intent from GW. I think where the argument has come in there is that the priest ability says that the attack is considered to have the Assault Doctrine active.
Mm-hmm.
For other chapters, that's not a problem. Let's take White Scars for example. When for them, their ability says when the attack is made, it is an additional damage. For us, Savage Echoes is not based on the attack, it's based on the charge. The charge is what gives us the extra attack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of how you play that wording. I think it's GW's intent to allow Savage Echoes to kick in there, but I think just to put the community at rest, I think they need to address that one way or the other.
Yeah.
And say yes or no, Savage Echoes kicks in with the Blood Chalice ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, after the stratagems, we've got Warlord Traits. Named characters obviously have specific Warlord Traits. They are all there. They are all named. A couple of them are pretty cool. Speed of the Primarch is the same as it is in the Space Marine Codex. Artisan of War is different. The Warlord can be given one of the following special issue War Gear relics in addition to any other relics that you may have. So you can take the Adamantine Mantle, Artificer Armor, Mastercrafted Weapon or Digital Weapon, or... Yeah, so you can take one of those instead of a proper Warlord trait.
So that's going to be able to get people to still get their 4 damage Thunderhammer if they want to.
Yeah.
The difference here is going to be, and somebody pointed this out to me earlier today because I hadn't really thought of it, for the people that had been using Artisan of War on one character and then using Mastercrafted Weapon on another character to get the increased damage on 2 weapons, you won't be able to do that in this situation anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still there, though. It's handy. Depending on who you're running, it could be useful. Soul Warden is next. While a friendly Blood Angel unit is within 6 of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll a dice, and on a 5+, it's not lost. It's very situational.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing games where you know what your opponent is playing and you're choosing Warlord traits, and if you're playing against Thousand Suns, take it. But in a sense of making an all-comers list, that's not a Warlord trait that's probably going to get taken very often.
No. The next one is Heroic Bearing, and it's worth noting that Commander Dante uses this one. Add 3 inches to the range of the Warlord's Rites of Battle, Tactical Precision, Chapter Master, and Spiritual Leader's abilities up to a maximum of 9 inches. So that's a 9-inch bubble of reroll 1s to hit with Dante, and it's a 9-inch range to select a unit to reroll all hits, as well as, of course, using Dante's leadership.
Yeah, I think we already saw quite a few boosts to Dante with the PDF that came out.
I liked all of them changes.
Yeah, they're good changes. And I think this boosts him up even more. You may not always want to take him as a Warlord, but if you do, this definitely makes him even more usable.
Yeah. Obviously, Dante's previous Warlord trait in 8th edition, I think, was reroll morale. No, it was auto pass morale.
I think it was auto pass morale.
Which, as a Space Marine player, most of the time you don't need to. And it was Yeah, a captain was just better in every single sense. But now I think combine the fact with Dante giving you an extra command point for taking him, and being able to use one of a select few stratagems that for free, he's not a bad shout. Is he a supreme commander?
And his permanent built-in -1 to hit him in shooting and melee.
Yeah.
Makes him more survivable.
Yeah. Interesting enough, he's not supreme commander, but I think that's more for like Gilliman. Somebody that would lead, an entire faction as opposed to just a specific chapter.
Yeah. The Silent King has that.
I think Gazgul
at,
and Shadow Sun should probably end up with it.
Probably.
But yeah. It's a decent Warlord trait. I like it. The next one, though, Gift of Foresight.
And this is the best one in here, in my opinion.
In each turn, not battle round, turn, you can reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 saving throw. So when you're fighting in your turn, when you charge, you're rerolling a hit, you're rerolling a wound, you're rerolling a save when your opponent hits back. And then if they hit you next turn in their combat phase, you've got the reroll save, but you're also rerolling that hit and rerolling that wound as well.
So we can have a character essentially with Victor of the Blood games.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the best Warlord trait there. And I don't see many people not choosing that.
Yeah, especially if you're choosing if you're trying to make a fighty character and not just a buffing character.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've got Selfless Valor. This Warlord is eligible to perform a heroic intervention if he's within 6. Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. It's not great with the change to heroic intervention in this edition. It was way better last edition because you could heroically intervene and not have to worry about getting hit.
Yeah.
Now, you really have to pick those heroic interventions a little bit more cautiously, I would say.
Absolutely. Very quickly covering the Flesh Tearers ones. Merciless Butcher. Each time this Warlord is selected to fight, make 1 additional attack with one of its melee weapons for every 5 models within 3 inches of it, up to a maximum of 3. So that one is capped. Of Wrath and Rage. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. Cool. And Critation Born. Each time this Warlord declares a charge, enemy units that were targeted by that charge cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend against the charge, and you can re-roll charge rolls made for that Warlord. That's pretty good. It's a shame it's Flesh Tearers and not Blood Angels.
Well, it's good. With Overwatch not being what it used to be, it's a little less useful, but the reroll charge is also nice.
Yeah. Next up, though, moving on to the Sanguinary Discipline. I was so relieved when I read this page, Chris.
Yeah. The 2 main ones that were used are still there. They are changed some.
Yeah.
That honestly, Wings of Sanguinus was changed exactly like I was expecting them to change it. And so it just lasts for the phase now instead of you getting that 12-inch and fly keyword until your next psychic phase.
Yeah.
Still very usable. Still, I think an auto take on a Librarian Dread and Mephiston.
Yeah, absolutely. I always loved charging flying Librarian Dreadnoughts into flyers and just stabbing them with the Force Halberd, which isn't as good as what it was, but it is what it is. So yeah, the fact that it only has fly for that phase, it's still fine. It's still a 12-inch move.
Yeah, it's a nerf in the sense of Mephiston suddenly jumping up and knocking flyers out of the air.
I think they obviously cottoned on to that. Quickening. It's worth noting as well. Wings of Sanguinius is casting value 6. Quickening is also 6, and it's
everything in here is actually 6 now.
All right, fair enough. I hadn't realised that. Until the start of your next psychic phase, you can re-roll, advance, and charge rolls made for this model, and add D3 to the Psyker's attacks characteristic. I'm pretty sure it used to add 3 to the charge roll, didn't it?
It did. You added 3 to the charge roll, and then the D3 additional attacks, which got quite crazy when Blood of Baal came out, and our Psykers were getting +4 to their charge because there was nothing that said it didn't stack with the chapter tactic.
Yeah. And then, of course, you were using Red Rampage to get the extra attacks on top of that.
Yeah. Note that the reroll charge here, basically they moved that from Wings of Sanguinus over to Quickening since they took away the +3 to charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Unleash Rage does not give you an extra attack now, which it is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. Basically, in the fight phase, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. It's okay.
So essentially, what's happened here with the change from the Codex Chaplain litanies that took that litany away, they've changed this to match what the litany was.
Yeah. Yeah. Shield of Sanguinius gives a unit of 5 up invulnerable. Cool.
Note on that one, if I'm not wrong, Harry, was that not 12 inches before, now it's 18?
Possibly.
I don't have my book here with me to look at that, but for some reason I want to think it was 12 inches, not 18.
Yeah, yeah. And then we've got Blood Boil and Blood Lance. I didn't use these, so I don't know what the old wording was. But
they don't seem to be much different, but I'm pretty sure the range on these has increased quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think Blood Boil was only a 3 or 6 inch range. Now it says 18.
Yeah.
And it is select one enemy unit within 18, so that could target a character.
Absolutely. So I think we got off quite lightly with our psychic powers. As much as they did change, they are still pretty close to what they were.
Yeah, I mean, Unleash Rage, while it was great, I think the change here is sensible. We're already throwing an unbelievable amount of attacks, especially when we get to turn 3. It's adding an extra one on top of that. I mean, a unit of Death Company Intercessors right now with Chainswords throws 7 attacks each in turn 3.
Yeah.
You know, this Unleash Rage on them just makes it unbelievable. So, I mean, it's a sensible change to that one, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's the psychic powers. Relics.
They're usable. Anybody that was overly attached to a few certain relics in the 8th edition Codex needs to go ahead and cry now, get it over with, and find ways to use the new ones.
Honestly, I'm gutted that the biomantic sarcophagus is gone.
Yeah, I was surprised with that one.
Especially because that's in the PDF.
Yeah.
So I was genuinely surprised that one went.
I'm not surprised that we lost almost all of the ones from the 8th edition Codex after the PDF came out.
Yeah.
There are a couple that are still in here, and they're different because of some changes with the way 9th edition is working now, but they're still usable.
But don't forget, you've still got access to the ones in the Space Marine book as well.
Yeah, and at this point, for me personally, I still think that Teeth of Terror is one of the best relics for us for a fighting character.
Absolutely. So the relics that we've got here, we've got the Wrath of Baal, which is a sanguinary ancient model only. The bearer gains the Wrath of Baal ability. Whilst a jump pack unit is within 6 of this model, each time that unit is selected to make a normal move, advance or fall back, add 2 to the unit's move characteristic. It's okay.
Let's note that was changed back pretty much to what it was in Blood of Ball. In the PDF, it only affected core units.
Right.
So now it affects all jump pack units.
I don't think there is a jump pack unit. Oh, no, because it would be characters, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so now it will affect characters within 6 inches of the Ancient.
Nice. Icon of the Angel. The bearer gains the following ability. Whilst a friendly Blood Angels unit is within 6 of this model, you can reroll the charge rolls. So increase to 6 inches from 3. And I think it only used to affect core.
It was only core, so that has now been changed back to all units. But the change to re-rolling the whole charge as opposed to individual dice does hurt, but bumping that up to 6 inches can make a big difference in how many units we get into combat.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got
and it's I know we're talking about relics, but like I said earlier, there's multiple ways for us right now to get re-rollable charges, and I think that's from a competitive standpoint, list build, that's something we look into. Multiple sources of re-rolling charges across the table can make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Visage of Death is next. Each time a melee attack is made against this unit, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. Cool. The bearer gains the following ability, Visage of Death. While an enemy unit is within 3, it loses the objective secured ability and any similar abilities that allow it to control an objective marker, regardless of the number of enemy models within range of the objective marker.
I love this.
I think that, in conjunction with the one that forces a character to have to be the target of an attack, if you've got 1 or 2 Space Marines on an objective with a captain with this and 30 Orc boys, it's like 30 Orc boys have got to hit me, and even if my 2 guys are surviving, but your Orcs are no longer objective secured.
Yeah. I think this would be good on a support character running around with, Sanguinary Guard. Because your Sanguinary Guard are going to go after stuff a lot of times that are near objectives.
Mm-hmm.
To knock them off there. And, the likelihood that they're probably not going to kill something is, slight. But, this will turn off anything else that's around that objective, along with your Sanguinary Guard and then holding it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's a pretty good relic. That's probably my favourite one out of what's there. We've got the Hammer of Baal. Thunderhammers are now only AP -2, aren't they?
They are. So the change here with Hammer of Baal from 8th edition to now is that the stats are staying the same. So you're getting your -3 Thunderhammer, but you no longer you now suffer the -1 to hit with it.
No, you don't.
Because before you didn't suffer a -1 to hit with it. Now you do.
Why do you think that you suffer the -1? Because it hasn't got the...
Well, I mean, it replaces a Thunderhammer, so I would assume... I guess I'm just assuming that it would take the same profile. Maybe not. They may need to clarify that, because in 8th edition it specifically stated it did not suffer a -1.
Right. See, I would say that it doesn't, because it doesn't have -1 to hit when attacking with this weapon next to it.
That's true, and it does say it replaces a hammer, so...
Yeah. Maybe
it doesn't suffer the -1. If it doesn't, then, I mean, for a fighting character, that's definitely a good shout.
Yeah. Galen's staff has made a reappearance as well. So it's for a librarian. Each time this model takes a psychic test to manifest a psychic power from the Sanguinary Discipline, add 1 to the psychic test. It replaces the Force Stave and has the following profile. So it's interesting that this relic will only go on generic librarians. because Primaris Librarians can't take 4 staves.
Yeah.
I don't like the 2 of the 5 relics are limited to very, very specific models. I'm not saying they're bad, I just don't like that they've limited them in that respect when there's only 5 there anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes them a very niche situation.
Yeah. And then we've got a pair of ones for Flesh Tearers. We've got the Crimson Plate. Add one to the Bearer's move. The Bearer is eligible to charge in a turn in which he advanced, and he can move up to 4 inches when making a pile-in or consolidation move. That's pretty good for Flesh Tearers.
The move in advance, or the charge in advance is the best part of that.
Yeah, because it doesn't say that you can't put it on a guy with a jump pack.
Yeah.
It doesn't say you can't put it on a guy on a bike either.
Yeah, so a bike captain with the relic and your 20-inch move, well, technically 21-inch.
Yeah.
Because you're gaining +1 to the move.
22 because you get +1 to your... No, but don't you get the +1 to advance?
The way that is worded, you don't actually do, because you have to make the dice roll to get the +1, and the way bots are worded right now, they say you make an automatic 6. You don't actually roll the dice.
Right, okay. But still, 22-inch movement, and then you're automatically charging 3 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good for Flesh Tearers. And then we've got Severer, which is an Astartes Chainsword, +2 strength, -2 AP, 2 damage, and on an unmodified wound roll of a 5+, the target suffers 1 mortal wound in addition. Again, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I could definitely see that going on a character that they, you make Death Company, so it's getting the extra attacks anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that we spoke about earlier, actually, Chris, I'm going to have a look back at it. You said that Mephiston and the Librarian Dreadnought can't take from anywhere other than the Sanguinary Discipline, right?
That's what their data sheets say, but then when you look at the Sanguinary Discipline page, it notes that Psyker models in the detachments can. So
yeah,
I guess it's a matter of how we're looking at that, interpretation.
Yeah.
The data sheet says they have to take from the Sanguinary Discipline.
Whereas the generic Librarian data sheet doesn't.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether or not the Librarian Dreadnought and Mephiston have to, but then other Librarians can choose. Interestingly enough, I did look at the Death Watch one, and that's where I read the same rule, so you can choose to take it from the Xenopurge Discipline, or the whatever the one is in the Space Marine book. I'm just actually looking at the named Librarian. It doesn't say that I can see. No, it says it knows Smite and 2 psychic powers from the Xenopurge Discipline. So I'm thinking named characters probably have to go on their respective disciplines.
I haven't looked at the FAQs for like Ultramarines or any of the other chapters. Did those change for like Tigerius? Does he have to choose from the Ultramarine powers now?
I am genuinely not sure. I will have a look whilst we cover some other stuff though. But yeah, that's the Sanguinary Discipline. Moving on to the actual characters.
Did you want to touch the special issue war gear?
We can do. I think most of it is pretty generic.
It is. Similar. Most of it's the same, but there are a couple things I think that are good to note, like the mantle, the artificer armor, mastercrafted weapon, digital weapons, and quake bolts all appear to stay the same. Archangel Shard is actually a usable item now, I think, as opposed to what it was in the Codex.
Right. I actually forgot about that. I thought these were all just the generic ones, but it replaces a power sword or mastercrafted power sword, +2 strength, -4 AP, and 2 damage. And each time an attack made with this weapon is allocated to a model in a Chaos unit, the damage characteristic becomes 3. If it's a Chaos monster, it becomes damage 4.
So I don't think it's one that's necessarily going to be a, kind of an auto take. The -4 AP is really nice if you're just wanting to slice through stuff. But, if you know you're fighting Chaos, I think that's a definite take.
Yeah, absolutely. Flesh Render Grenades. It replaces frag grenades and has a following profile. D3 shots, strength 5 -3, 2 damage. It is blast, and each time an attack is made with this weapon, the target does not receive the benefits of light cover against the attack. Notice it says light cover, Chris, because some cover gives -1 to hit.
Yeah, the change here from the Index and Blood of Ball is that it's Grenade D3 now and not Grenade 3. And before it just ignored cover. So
yeah.
They made that change as well. So if you used that relic before, that's a bit of a change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then Gleaming Pinions changed as well.
Yep, so the bearer is eligible to charge in a turn in which it fell back, and you can re-roll charge rolls for the bearer. So again, it's making you re-roll the whole charge.
And it lost the additional +1 to the charge roll.
Actually, it never used to give you the re-roll charge.
Yeah, it gave you an additional +1 to your charge roll.
Instead, yeah. Fair enough. So again, they've taken away that way to get all them pluses to you, because that would have stacked with the Blood Angels +1. So that would have given you
were
+2.
getting for the model with Gleaming Pinions, you were getting a +2 to charge.
Yeah. Interesting. So, looking at the units that we've actually got access to, there is quite a lot of units, because I think Blood Angels is a chapter with, I think, is it like 10 named characters we've got, if you count Gabriel Seth? About 10. And then, of course, we've got quite a lot of unique units as well. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to go through all of these because I've been working.
I compared them to the index that was put out.
Yep.
And at this current moment, I don't see anything on a data sheet that was changed from the index to this.
No. The one thing that I did see that changed was, when I eventually find it, interesting enough as well, I didn't realise this until Chris pointed out, but Death Company Dreadnoughts and Furioso Dreads don't have the core keyword. That's got to be a misprint, hasn't it?
They were that way in the index as well, so I'm hoping that is addressed.
It seems crazy that they're not.
I mean, I could semi-understand a Death Company Dreadnought maybe not being core, but the Furioso doesn't really make sense to me at all.
Especially because we now get access to Ironclads.
Yeah, I mean, every Dreadnought in the Space Marine Codex is core.
Yeah.
To my knowledge right now, the only Dreadnoughts that are not core are from Forge World.
Yeah. The Leviathan's not, and I'm not sure if the Mortis was.
The Relic Contemptor is core. But I'm not sure about the Deredeo.
So, yeah, I'm hoping that is a misprint. We'll have to see. The Death Company datasheet actually changed. So rather than it being Death Company Intercessors, and then I think we had a separate one for Death Company Assault Intercessors. I think.
No, in the index it stayed the same. It's just
right.
It just is, I think, in some instances poorly worded on the war gear options. You have to kind of decipher what's there.
So it says all models in this unit can have their bolt rifle replaced with one auto bolt rifle, or same again with one stalker bolt rifle, or same again with one heavy bolt pistol and one Astartes chainsword. Up to a maximum of one chainsword per model. One model that is equipped with a heavy bolt pistol can have a hand flamer or a plasma pistol, and one model, if equipped with a heavy bolt pistol, could take a hand flamer, plasma pistol. That's
so. I think the easiest way for most people to look at this data sheet is, if you're going to arm them like assault intercessors, you pretty much follow the same guidelines for arming as assault intercessors do.
Right.
The one model situation would be the sergeant for the assault intercessors. If you're going to arm them with the bolters, then you look at just a standard intercessor data sheet, and that's the way you can arm them.
Yeah.
The way they wrote all of this out, I think it comes across very confusing until you really sit down and just on a first read, until you really sit down and read through it, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, and I know this changed going into the index, but Death Company now can only be in units of 10. The generic Death Company.
Yeah, and some people were hoping that it was a misprint in the index, but for everybody that, including myself, that chopped bolt pistols off and put bolt guns on Death Company Marines, just either remodel or tell your opponent that those are just really, really big bolt pistols. Because you're not getting your bolt guns back on a jump pack Marine and have a chainsword.
No, I didn't change mine. I don't know if you noticed this as well, Chris, going into the index, but Death Company intercessors actually have 3 attacks base.
Yes.
Instead of the 2, which is pretty good, because then they are getting we touched on it earlier, 7 attacks with the chainsword one on the charge on turn 3.
It's quite insane.
Yeah.
I have 10 assault intercessors sitting at home that will hopefully soon be painted up as Death Company intercessors.
Excellent. I'm waiting for the I do have 5 here, but I'm waiting for the multi-part kit next week. I'm going to get myself a multi-part kit. Just for the extra upgrade weapons and stuff, and model 1 or 2 guys with that.
And I may wait to do that, just to be able to change out some shoulder pads easier without having to take a hobby knife to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Baal Predators, Furiosa Dreadnoughts. I wish Baal Predators were a little bit better again.
I have...
The kind of are, because obviously heavy bolters having 2 damage and the flame storm cannon and the heavy flamer getting extra range is nice. The problem is when you compare it to a gladiator.
Yeah. I haven't actually brought myself to buying a Baal Predator. I got back into playing 40K at the beginning of 8th edition and just have never been able to make myself make that plunge because they've just been so bad.
Yeah. At the end of 7th, when Angel's Blade came out, you could take a Land Raider and 3 Baal Predators, and you could have them do a scout move. So then, because they were fast, you could obviously scout move 12 inches, move 12 inches, and the Baal Predator at the time used templates. So you could just flame storm something and heavy flame or something, because you could still fire 2 weapons after you move 12 inches. Because they had the Lucifer pattern engines, but also with the Redeemer as well, because it had power of the Machine Spirit, it let you fire all weapons without suffering any penalties or anything. So you scouted it 12 inches forward, you got your unit out, then you moved it another 12 inches forward and torched everything. It was so good, and they're just not good now.
I guess there's a place for them if you just want to set them in the back and with assault cannons and heavy bolters. But, not being core also hurts them because that's a lot of shots, but you're not re-rolling anything.
Yeah. And when something with an extra 3 wounds, an extra point of toughness, and puts out 3 times as many shots for...
I personally feel like the Gladiator Reaper is a little overkill unless you are facing hordes. But
is that the one with the onslaught cannons?
Situation.
Is that the one with the assault cannons? The onslaught cannons?
With the 2 heavy onslaught Gatling cannons.
Yeah.
24 shots just from the turret is a little overkill unless you know you're facing hordes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's touch on points very briefly to see who we've got.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
I compared to the index, and luckily for any of us that have been making lists in the last month using index points, everybody will be happy to know that nothing changed. So all the lists that you've made up using those points, you don't have to go back and completely revamp.
Which is good. Which is very good.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was actually dreading doing, was having to go back and, cut models out or something in order to fit into a list again.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that is Codex Supplement Blood Angels. Having obviously discussed it now, Chris, and I know we touched on this at the beginning, how do you feel now about this book?
I think it is, like I said before, I think it's balanced. I don't think there's anything in it that we can definitely say is just flat out broken. There are some good combos in there, and depending on how you want to run your army, you can make some very strong lists in certain directions. I think the one thing that I like the most about the revamp to the Space Marine Codex, and even to this at this point, is that I don't think there's anything right off the bat that we can sit here and go, okay, that's the meta choice to take.
Yeah.
There are, I think with the way the Space Marine Codex was redone and this, there are lots of viable different army builds at this current point.
And what I found, and you probably experienced this more than me because I know you go to more tournaments than myself, but a lot of people built their army, for example, around the Angel's Wing, or around a Sanguinary Guard bomb in a very specific way.
Yes.
And what I found is that you can still build a Blood Angel army, but you're not building around a gimmick. And it's the same with any other Space Marines. It doesn't feel like you're building for a specific gimmick. Yes, you're going to go more combat heavy with Blood Angels. That's their chapter trait. But you're not shoehorning your list, and not everybody's Blood Angel list is going to have a Smash Captain to Red Rampage with the Angel's Wing.
Yeah. The way, towards the end of 8th edition, my list was at least 2 units of Sanguinary Guard, and then a bunch of Intercessors and Impulsors, and it was just in your face, go straight forward and kill everything that I could. And with a big backup of a big blob of aggressors down the center. And that was the build that a lot of people started going to because it was survivable and it hit hard. Do I think that list could still be viable? And, obviously with point changes adjusting it, it could be. But there are so many other things now that are viable that there's not, for us, yes, I think Sanguinary Guard are still a definite auto-include. They're good. But do we auto-include 30 Sanguinary Guard? Probably not. But if you want to, could it still be viable? Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that is just an absolute at this current point you have to take because it's broken and that's the best thing in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think that there's anything. Well, I don't say anything. I don't think there are a whole lot of options that are just absolutely trash that you completely avoid either. I think a lot of things have found more of a spot where you can use them if you want to build your list to that.
Yeah. Completely agree.
People have lamented the scouts being moved to elites, and while I did as well because I have 30 painted scouts sitting now in a case that aren't going to all see a table anytime soon. They gained some things that they didn't have before. They still can set up in concealed position, but they also gain the outflank ability. And from a competitive sense, if you need a unit to do deploy scramblers for cheap, there's a 70-point scout unit that you put in reserve because they outflank for free. Pop them up in your opponent's deployment zone turn 3, do deploy scramblers, and then they die.
Yeah.
So they still have some uses, but it's just how you want to build your list at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I want to say a massive thank you to Chris for, of course, joining me and giving us his thoughts on this book. Chris, of course, posts a lot of his tournament results and list building, theory crafting and stuff in the Blood Angels Facebook group. So if you're not a member of that, go and join it. I want to say a massive thank you, of course, to Games Workshop for sending us this to preview. I am excited to get this on the table and run against Lucy's Orcs again, because that's all we can play at the minute. But nevertheless, I am excited by Blood Angels. I always am. And of course, if anybody does want to pre-order anything of the new Space Marine range, the Blood Angel supplement or the dice or anything along those lines, Battle Bunker is currently offering discount and free postage if you spend over £40. That is, of course, UK only. But check Battle Bunker out on Facebook. But Chris, thank you very much once again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And there we go. That's the recording finished.
Awesome.
But yeah, I think